Hey, greetings everyone. Daniel Lowrie with Antisyphon Training coming in hot with another episode in our Networking Fundamentals series. Today we're going to take a look at a network device known as a router. That's right, routers. You may have heard the term before. Hopefully you have. It is one of the main components that makes networks do networky things, especially if you want to connect the networks together, right? Without these things, you're going to have a hard time, and that's not going to be a lot of fun for anyone. So we need to understand what a router is, what it does, and some of the options and features that we might bump into as we mess with routers. They're a lot of fun, though, so this should be for a good time. That said, let's talk about what a router is. And I've kind of hinted to it already, but what a router is a device that routes network packets from one network to another. It connects dissimilar networks. That's just a fancy word, dissimilar, which means not my network. Right? Or it's another network that is separate from the one that I'm currently on. That's all we're trying to say here. So if I need to get from my 192.168.1.5 machine to a 10.10.10.4 machine, well, I'm going to have to go through a router. I'm going to have to pass through there so that I can get there. And the router's the one going, okay, I got this 192 something network going on over here. I got this 10.10 network going on over there, and I'm connected to both. And every now and then I see some packets trying to get from one to the other. I got you covered. Let me just go ahead and shovel those on over. So that's basically what a router does. It connects those dissimilar networks together. Now, we also get connected to private networks like the internet. The internet is just a giant private network that you connect to through your ISP. And your ISP gives you what? A router. Now, they might have a modem and things of that nature, but you're still probably connecting through a router at some point in time to make that ultimate connection to your ISP from your host devices on your network. So we like this. We have LAN side of things, which is everything that's within your network, your computers, laptops, your tablets, your TVs, your other IoT devices. That's cool. And they talk to each other internally, but if they ever need to get out to the internet, they're going to have to go through that router. The router's going to make that connection for you. All right, so the main goal of a router is just to route packets between networks. Simple, easy, you're good? All right, let's move on. Let's keep going. I guess the next thing we should talk about is how do routers work? Like, how do they do the thing that we're hoping that they do for us? How do they connect those networks together? Well, they do it in a couple of ways. They have a table, right? They're going to start off with physical stuff. They have interfaces that connect them to something. Ultimately, it's going to be a wire of some ilk that is connecting you. A literal copper cable or fiber optic will run underneath the ground, over the skies, whatever the case is, it will connect to there somehow. And that's what your router is going to be ultimately connected to. And it's going to have a plug-in to an interface on your router, and that's going to give it that connectivity. But then it's got to do some stuff under the hood. It's got to have some logic behind it. And that's where routing comes into play. That's where it really does all the work. It's nice to have the connection, but if it doesn't know what to do with the information that's coming across that wire, it's not going to be very effective. So the router has things like routing tables. And you can do dynamic routing, you can do static routing, but the routing table basically just says, these are the networks I'm connected to. This is the interface in which I am connected to said network. And if I need to get a packet from one place to another, now I have a table that lets me go, okay, well, this packet's destined for here, or that packet's destined for there, and off we go. If it doesn't know exactly where that network is, it's going to send it out something called the gateway of last resort. It's going to say, well, if I don't know where to send this packet, I'm going to send it out the gateway of last resort, and fingies crossed, it'll find where it's supposed to go, because it's going to send it to another router, and that's going to do the same thing. If it doesn't know where it is, it's going to send it to another router, and so on and so forth, until ultimately it finds where it's supposed to land, or it doesn't. And then you get an error, or you get whatever it is you were trying to connect to. You get the connection. So routing tables are our friends. Without them, we don't do a whole lot of routing. It makes life a little bit difficult. Now, I mentioned that there is static routing and that there's dynamic routing. Static routing is where I go into the system, or you, and I tell it, this is how you get from this network to that network. I create that connection like manually, right? And there are times when that needs to be done. It's not a lot of fun, but it can be done, right? It's just once you get used to it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I can create these routes. But you're doing that's the manual process. That's what we mean by static. Probably heard these terms static and dynamic before in other episodes, right? Nothing has really changed. It's just within the context in which we're using those words. So here it is creating routing tables. It's creating a route connection manually. Dynamic is going to be through a protocol. Hey, it's going to do it automatically for me. I don't have to do anything other than some basic configuration. Let me just connect things together and turn it on. Maybe I just have to enable dynamic routing and bing, it starts to do the stuff. So that's what we like about dynamic routing. Some of the more popular dynamic routing protocols out there that you might run into are like RIP. I forget what RIP stands for off the top of my head now. I'm horrible with acronyms, but there's RIP, there's OSPF, there's EIGRP, BGP is another big one. That's a very important protocol when it comes to routing. Now that's typically, and I think this is a really good segue for us to move into the router types, because all those dynamic routing protocols that I was just speaking about, you basically only ever see those on enterprise devices, okay? We are most likely working in a Soho environment, a small office, home office, your home, or just a small business environment. And that's probably the equipment that you got from your ISP. They gave you a couple of boxes. They said, hook these things up and you're set to jet, right? Now, you probably see some interfaces that look a little bit like this. This is an Asus wireless router. And yes, a lot of them have wireless capabilities built in. This is the exact router right here. This interface that you're just seeing is the interface for configuring this type of device. That is an Asus router. And it does tell us some cool information. We can kind of look at some of the features that we get with these Soho routers. Like I can see the network map. That's my landing page. It's my dashboard. Gives me a nice overall generic look of what's going on. And I can see here that I am connected to the internet, and it gives me the WAN IP. And this is the IP address that is public, because there's public IPs and there's private IPs. You have to have a public IP to be a part of the internet, right? So that will need that from your ISP. Now, of course, you're going to get that through a dynamic configuration. Most of the time, we don't have to set those things up statically, that there's a little dynamic configuration thing going on that we never have to touch. We just connect all the bits and pieces. We call our ISP and go, hey, I've connected all the things. I should have connectivity at this point, and they can get you set up and rocking and rolling. But it's good to see that right there, I have that connected status. I can see my WAN IP for the internet, and I'm good. I'm also using DDNS for my DNS. I got the wireless part going on, and that's all great. We're going to talk about wireless in another episode, so I'm not going to really dive into that. What I really want to look at when it comes to the Soho type routers is the fact that you can do things like mesh networks. And that's really cool. That's AI mesh, but that's a really neat thing. Quality of service, traffic analyzation, right? And then down here, you can come and you can take a look at both of your networks. I've got LAN and WAN tabs. So if I click on LAN, and I take a moment here, I can see tools and information about my LAN itself, right? What the host name is, what the IP address of the device is, subnet mask. I can make those changes. If I want to use the router itself as a DHCP server, which a lot of us end up doing, I can come in here and set that configuration, right? There's the pool of addresses starting at 192.168.50.2, going to 192.168.50.254, right? Really cool. Here's the lease time. If I want to set DNS servers, I can do that here. Very, very fun stuff, right? I can manually assign some DHCP. So basically, this is doing DHCP reservations. I just need some MAC addresses, set the IP, and the DNS server, all that other fun stuff. Really great stuff. This is a really nice to have when it comes to Soho routers. I can go to routes. Let's see what's going on there. Oh, look, enable static routes. I can do that. So again, these types of small office, home office of routers, they do a lot of work for us, and we don't have to really touch those configurations, which is what exactly we like. So, but we do have that option for static routing if we want to do that, or if we need to do that for X, Y, or Z reasons. Let's kind of move on down the road here. Let's go over to that WAN tab. Let's click on that. And let's see what's going on here. You notice this is all about the internet connection. Okay, this is the device name. It says it supports several different types of connections to a WAN, a wide area network. And you can work with that below, right? We can go the WAN connection type, automatic IP assignments. I can go static. I can use PPOE, PPTP, or L2TP, which are just different protocols for connecting WANs. So you tell you what you want to do. You can enable NAT. You can use UPnP. Again, we're not trying to get to where I'm explaining how to configure every router out there, but I just want you to be familiar with these are very common options with our Soho routers, and they're very useful ones, especially in certain circumstances. So we've got WAN DNS settings, authentication. Every now and then you might need that, especially if you're using 102.x. I'm sorry, 102.1x. And any special requirements from your ISP would go in here. So every now and then they might have to have you work with this, especially if you didn't go with their system, their devices. Maybe you bought your own and you want to incorporate with that. Of course, you'll have to check with them to make sure that they actually do work with their system and their environment. But if that passes the test, then you can come in here and make those configuration changes. And sometimes that is definitely the way to go, especially if you want to be more secure. We've got dual WAN capabilities. If I click on that, we can see this is a really cool option actually, that if you have this, you can turn this on and then you can set basically a backover, a failover. So if one connection to the internet fails, it'll fail over to the other. So that's really nice. You got port triggering where it opens a port when a certain condition is met. You've got port forwarding where you have an always open port from your internal LAN to the WAN environment. So if I wanted to set up like an HTTP server and run a web server out of my house, I want to do my own hosting, I could put port 80 open on port forwarding on my LAN side of things, and I would tell it if any traffic comes to port 80 on my WAN IP address, forward it into my LAN on this IP address on this port. So that's a really nice thing. Port forwarding is always nice to have. You don't always see that capability, especially when it comes to routers that you get from your ISP. But if it's there, it's nice. It's very useful. And if you click on that, I can, it's nice to show you the interface, isn't it? There you go. So I can click, I give it a service name, what external port, what's the internal port that's going to, what's the internal IP address that's going to, what protocol are you using, what's the source IP, and so on and so forth, right? So that's really good. You just have to hit enable and go crazy with that. Lots of stuff. You also have a DMZ, demilitarized zone. Maybe I do spin up that web server. I would probably want to put that in the DMZ. And it will tell you here, the DMZ allows you to expose one computer to the internet so that all inbound packets will be redirected to the computer you set. It is useful while you run some applications that use uncertain incoming ports. A lot of times the DMZ is just used for, I have something that is supposed to be exposed to the internet, so I'm going to give it that exposure through something like a DMZ. So it's kind of sitting in this zone where it's connected to the internet and to your internal systems as well, your internal LAN. And so you got to be very careful on what you put in the DMZ because people from the outside can access it. And if it's insecure, that might very well give them access to the inside of your network. So that's a security function that you want to work out and figure out. So like it says, be very careful on what you put in there, but that's what a DMZ is for. All right, it's also got DDNS and NAT pass-through, fun stuff. But another couple cool tools over here, like AI Mesh. Like I said, you can do mesh networks with these a lot of times. That's a very popular thing to do. You can grab these little mesh nodes, connect them. Eero makes one. It's very popular because they work very well. But you can set them around your house to make sure you have wireless connectivity much farther out. We'll talk a little about that a little bit more in the wireless episode. What else do we got here? A traffic analyzer. We saw that. Oh, yeah, that's right. We can spin up VPN. We can work with IPv6, firewalling capabilities, right? Add some security. So if you want to come in here and create some firewall rules and some filtering, this is always a really nice to have to be able to do. Enterprise routers have this as well, but you work with them in a little bit different way. So you just need to come in here and enable things. You can enable DOS protection with this specific device. You have URL filtering if I don't want you going to specific URLs or with keywords in the sites that you want to block. You can do some blocking, keyword filtering, and network service filtering, right? So a lot of different types of filtering are available in a lot of Soho routers. You just got to go in there and find that VPN capability and set it up. Of course, you have your administration where you go, hey, I want to actually work with my device and set some things about it. Sometimes you just go into system, definitely doing firmware upgrades. That is an important piece of the puzzle. You should be setting a very regimented and scheduled upgrade system where you are doing that. You want to make that like a policy that you do, because if you don't, then it'll be out of date and it might have a security issue. You don't want that. But you can set all your fun little stuff here for administration. And that is kind of a nice thing. You can set up remote administration. So a lot of people do not recommend that. I'm probably one of them, but it is an option. You just got to understand you're opening yourself up to a security issue if you're not doing things securely. Let's see here. And then network tools, those are always very useful. We'll see more of this when it comes to a troubleshooting episode that we're going to take a look at. But we can do things like ping, traceroute, NSLookup, some standard fare just to make sure, hey, I'm having trouble connecting. What's going on there? Maybe I can come in here and use some of these tools and get into that. All right, so that's Soho routers. Let's jump for just a moment. I'm not going to take you too far down the road, but I want you to see a little bit of the difference between what it looks like between something like this, right? It's really nice. Got your switch, got your WAN port right there. Ooh, it's got a built-in Wi-Fi. Isn't that sweet and dandy? It is. But when you bump up into the enterprise environment, if you work in a help desk or something, you might start to get hands-on a little bit more with things of this nature, which are those enterprises, Cisco's, those Junipers, and so on and so forth. So let's jump over here. I'm just using Packet Tracer, which is a Cisco Net Academy tool that you can go download for free if you like. Just sign up for Cisco Net Academy, and then you can download this tool. But it does allow you to create networks and work with a simulated network environment. And I've got a couple of routers here, and you can see I've got a whole network built. But if I click on one of the routers, it takes me to this cool graphic, and you can actually see a image representation of what a Cisco router looks like. So that's why I was like, oh, this is going to be great. You can actually see, because I don't have any routers with me anymore. And they've got some ports on them. You can see on this is actually like, I don't know whether this is be considered the front or the back, because the power cable comes out of the back of most things, but that's the power cable right there. So you tell me what the front and the back is. I don't know. And there's the power button. But you have some ports right here, which is really nice. Like this one right here specifically is called a console. That's a console port. And you use this type of wire right here to connect to the console. It's got a nice little end. You'll also probably need an adapter if you don't have a serial, but this is the old school way of firing up your Cisco routers for the first time and getting connected and getting them configured. It also has some Ethernet ports as well, so giving you some options. So I have 2 built-in options for connecting 2 different networks. Very nice. Then you have these expansion ports, which you use a WIC, which is a WAN interface card. So if I need to have different types of connections for different types of networks, I can use these expansion boards, plug them in. So it's obviously you're starting to see the difference between something like our Soho router versus our enterprise router. And then, of course, when it comes to configuration, that's a little bit of a different story as well. This is a CLI. They do have, GUI interfaces that you can use as well. A lot of people use those to great use, but getting handy with the CLI for Cisco is going to be a good thing. Let me get do this. That way we can have some help with. There we go. That's going to be helpful. And when you come in here, you just got to configure things. So if I wanted to configure something, or if I wanted to see the configuration, I can say like show route, show me the routing table. Oh, goodness gracious. So show, and if you do a question mark, that's the great thing about this, right? Is the Cisco routers give you question marks. I guess I'll just do show run. So show run, and that should show me some of the configuration for this router. And if we kind of step our way through it, let's see some of the more interesting pieces of here. So here we go. I've got a couple of interfaces. This gigabit Ethernet 00 is connected. It has an IP address. There's its subnet mask, the duplex speed and everything. There's another one that's connected. So I've got 2 different networks connected. They've got IP addresses. They've got subnet masks. Let's keep rocking. And it looks like it's on interface VLAN 1. So really cool stuff there. I think maybe it's show IP routes. There we go. Now it's showing me, there's the routing table. It's been a minute since I've messed around with Cisco equipment, so you'll forgive my lackadaisicalness on remembering what the commands are. But there you go. I can see I am set up. I need to set the gateway of last resort, right? Because it's not set there. It's a configuration change I would want to make. But I've got connections to this network is directly connected via this port. This is directly connected via that port as well. So it's showing me what it's learned via the routing protocol that has been enabled, which is RIP for this one. So that's really cool. So you can see that routing table to let you know where all those routes are. So again, don't want to get you too far down the road on, Cisco stuff, but I do want to whet your appetite with that. It's really cool stuff. CCNA, the Cisco certifications are really cool certs and really useful for people that are looking to get into networking. They will teach you a lot of really good stuff. So if you ever wanted to reach for the stars, start going down that Cisco or even Juniper routes, that could be something for you down the road as you learn more about networking. And maybe you become enamored with it. I know I sure did at one point in time. I was really into networking. It is a lot of fun playing around with routers, doing some switch jockey stuff. We'll talk about switches again in another episode. But hopefully you've enjoyed this. I wanted to make sure, let me see, was there anything else I wanted to cover? I think we covered it all. We've got dynamic routing. We talked about Soho versus enterprise. We've seen some of how we configure things. We know exactly what a router is and what it does and why it does it. And yeah, I think we're good. This has been a fun episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, you know what to do. You find that like and subscribe down there and you smash them. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you liked about it. Let us know what kind of content you want to see in the future. That would be great. Give us some great ideas so we can make content that you enjoy. That said, also check us out in our socials. We're very active in the LinkedIn. We also have a Discord, so you got to join that out. We got plenty of stuff going on all the time. Check out poweredbybhis.com to see all the upcoming events that we have scheduled, and you can get registered and be a part of them. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see you there. And thank you for watching this episode, and until next time, have a great day.